generally speaking, in the UK, you don't go and meet, quote unquote, a bunch of strangers for the first time, many of them, and you all start eating together and sharing food. It was something like kind of really like, wow, amazing. And
sharing food in that way with strangers is just weird. Like
just sharing time with strangers is an alien thing.
Yeah.
Now, these group of people, I have to give a piece of my heart to. How do you give your heart to someone and people sitting together, eating, sharing food? I'm like, why are you touching my food? Like, why? Give me a plate.
This body just is gonna wither away, when I'm put in the ground someday. And like you said, we're all heading towards the same destination. Just make sure we're jumping off the right station.
Have you ever thought how transformative a first experience can be? Just imagine a young person, eyes wide open and a heart filled with determination, about to embark on a journey of a month-long training. How do they battle their desires? How do they fight and wrestle with their desire to do or eat or drink? You probably know. We're talking about the month of Ramadan. Well, today we're going to share the stories of those who embarked on this journey for the first time and how they felt and how they wrestled their desires. So join us on another episode of Inspirable. Inshallah ta'ala, you'll be inspired for your future. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam. Alaikum brothers.
How are you?
How you doing?
Everyone's good? Energy's high?
Energy's high.
Eyes wide open? Feeling
a
you?
lot of caffeine. I've been energy drink, coffee and everything. My heart's going to pound in a minute.
Inshallah ta'ala. Very wide.
Alhamdulillah.
So, month of Ramadan. You're 14 years old. You was how old?
My first Ramadan, it was first year I became a Muslim. So I was, what was I? 21, 22?
21. I was 19.
When I did my first fast in Sweden, it was summer, like 20 hours. I actually thought I would die. Like for real, I thought like, okay,
I'm just thinking about that right now, and I'm like, man, alhamdulillah. We're not in Sweden or Norway.
Alhamdulillah, yeah. But
some of them like
UK, it's been like 15 hours, 14 hours.
15 hours.
That's nothing, bro.
They have like 22 hours where they break their fast. Yeah. They just about get a chance to eat, pray, and then
sleep again.
And then
it's time to
but it's cornflakes again, and it's back to sleep.
Some rotten fish maybe.
Pickled herring and some,
Yeah,
it's ajib.
Another thing I was thought about, like it's so hard as well when you're new Muslim, like you said, maybe you want to hide it from people. Like there's so many things you got to know. Like I didn't know. My first time someone told me when I took my shahada, it was like, okay, there's like Ramadan soon, you got to prepare. I was like, what? I got to do Ramadan? Yeah, you're a Muslim now. Okay. Yeah, I know, I should turn back. I know. And then they said, you know what? You should do sunnah fasting. Like fast a couple of days before Ramadan just to prepare yourself. So you don't get, overwhelmed. I was like, okay, let's try it. But I had no idea how to do it. Like I thought, like I woke up, it was time for Fajr. I prayed Fajr. I said eating, and I'm saying, okay, so almost time for sunrise. Like, stop eating now, probably. I had no idea. And I think, what kind of mistakes did you like? Just to, so I don't feel stupid.
I'm just,
please share.
I'm laughing because I'm not gonna lie. That is kind of the same thing I was living. It's like, wake up just before the sunrise and eat.
People said it, eat before the sunrise.
Before the sunrise, right?
But it's like the Fajr, they mean the Fajr, right?
Fajr, that means the onset of Fajr, before the onset of Fajr. And this is highlights here, I think, I don't know about Ismail, but how important knowledge is.
Yeah, 100%.
As we know that, and it's even stressed and highly emphasized in the statement of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him, when he said, seeking knowledge and obligation upon every Muslim.
Yeah.
Because knowledge precedes action. And a lot of our elements of our story is that we acted but didn't have the necessary knowledge to act. Now there's a
and a lot of the time, sorry to interrupt, but a lot of the time also the Muslims around us didn't have the knowledge to tell us.
Exactly.
So we're like,
what
double trouble,
double trouble.
Like,
and this is the paradigm that we have to kind of make a shift. Is that we have to be people of action based upon knowledge, and we have to share knowledge with each other. Because I was told as well, and I'm giggling to myself because I'm recalling all these events. We can do half fasts.
Okay. Yeah, actually, I'm pretty sure now you say that some of my friends told me that. I remember them breaking their fast like 1 o'clock in the canteen.
It was at Dhuhr time. I was told that at Dhuhr time you can khalas it, So I remember we went to Cadbury's World, and I was fasting, and it was like, you know what? you could do half fast when it gets to the dhuhr. You can.
So that you're actually refreshing my memory. That actually, my friend wasn't angry because I broke the fast.
Yeah.
He was like, you can't just break it. You have to make the dua.
Yeah.
When you break the fast, usually the correct time, you have to make it now as well.
Yeah.
But it wasn't the fact that you've broke, because they were also like, things are hard, bro. You can break the fast.
Yeah. So when it's like, obviously we chuckle over it, but the reality is this is a musibah. So it's a big problem. It's a big problem because, we're playing with something that we know that, it's a debt to Almighty God that, He's prescribed upon us as fasting and it's an obligation and we have to repay it back.
Yeah.
But the reality is it just highlights that paradigm of wanting to do something and doing it, but doing it correctly.
Yeah.
And this is where Islam is really, in my world view as well as religious view, is come with perfection. You cannot do anything without knowledge.
But even if you do wrong, and let's say you're a new Muslim now watching and you do stuff wrong, that's fine. Like if you didn't know,
exactly,
right,
you know how to count for that.
Like the first thing with any action, you need to have the intention, right?
Sah.
Then obviously, like you said, you need to have knowledge what you're doing.
Sah.
But there might be like you hide it from people, you hide it from your family. People might not know. You're surrounded with people saying do half fast to, like it's hard. What you're gonna do in those cases?
Sah.
Then obviously, alhamdulillah, today we have cell phones, we have internet. You can always look these things up. But there are like many things that are not like just incorrect. Like you said, you talk about the not spitting, like not swallowing your own saliva and things like. I also thought that. And the thing is, I had like this hay fever, like intense hay fever. So I get really sick. And it was during summer, so I needed to take my medication. So I didn't. They said it will break it fast. I was like, okay. And I get these, so I had to I had so much saliva it would last for the whole year. So I did spit all the time. I had my cup, I had bags. It looks so weird. And then someone like, take it easy, bro.
Take it easy, bro. Yeah, this is the thing, bro. Yeah.
So it's like knowledge, but the right knowledge, right?
Yeah, this is very important, and this is very sometimes like it's a challenging feeling, but it's a challenging feeling only because of our own self. Not because of external factors, because something to be the truth. I know that I need to drink water, but I'm not going to drink water. And I'm talking like, even myself, I know that I should drink more water, but sometimes it's an internal battle that I need to fight with. Everyone can tell me, you should drink more water, Shaheed, you can drink more water, X, Y, and Z. But at the end of the day, until I overcome that obstacle within myself, it's no benefit. But I know I need it. And I know it's the truth.
Yeah. And
that's the kind of journey I wouldn't say I was in. I knew this Islam was the truth. I was living it, but I didn't know I wasn't a Muslim.
Yeah.
Do you understand? And that's the defining factor. So for my first initial experience of Ramadan was, okay, now I'm a new Muslim. After all of these months of living like a Muslim, how do I get over this next stage? Do you understand me? Because I didn't really know how to pray properly. I didn't know I had no knowledge around me. And this is one of the biggest problems I had, because I was like getting through the day and I was like, I've completed a fast. But I nullified my fast by many things I was doing in that day. Do you understand me? So what do we do now? What do we do with that month of fasting? SubhanAllah, we have to make it up.
But didn't you know like Muslims around you that did fast? Like I'm thinking like not even our own initial, like our own experience, but like the first even encounter with someone fasting. Because like in the West, it's not like people don't fast. Like
no, I mean for me it would have been those Muslim friends that I kind of saw praying. And if I remember correctly...
Did they fast?
I think some of them, you know how it is. I mean, they weren't necessarily practicing. They're in the West. I have a feeling that some of them kind of like half fasted or something, half didn't. Yeah. But I can remember, and I must have been a Muslim then, because I remember, and I don't think they were the kind of guys who did like voluntary fasting. So it must have been Ramadan. And I remember that, I think I just think halfway through the day I ate something. And one of my Muslim friends was like, you can't just do that. Even though you can, when you can't, obviously, it's not allowed. But he was as if you have to say a special dua, which is obviously not correct, to end it, because you ended it. There's no way to you made a special dua, it's okay now. But this maybe I could have been Muslim. It's hard to even remember. It could have been a week, could have been a month, could have been 6 months. But I wasn't surrounded by the only Muslims I had were my school friends. Had their own shortcomings, of course, being a typical teenagers in general.
Right.
So, but that's what I can remember about fasting, that I didn't do it right or something.
Yeah.
But I can remember nice things. I remember at that time I was living in a place called Old Coulsdon, Caterham. So the nearest big Muslim community back then was in like Croydon Mosque. So I used to go there. And something was really nice that I found is how everybody would go downstairs in the basement area of the mosque, which is obviously carpeted. It's not a literal basement. And everyone gets together. Loads of people bring in food from the mosque, bring in food. People are bringing food from their houses. And I don't know if you've experienced, you probably have, where they put this raw havza in the milk. You've had it, right?
What? I can't have it.
You can't have it?
Yeah. Milk, I'm sensitive to milk,
yeah.
right?
But it's like it's a Pakistani thing where they put syrup. I don't know. It's like a rosy kind of syrup maybe, and they put it in milk, but it tasted amazing. Anyway, so these little memories of everyone. But it was such a nice experience because generally speaking, in the UK, you don't go and meet quote unquote a bunch of strangers for the first time. Many of them. And you all start eating together and sharing food. It was something like kind of really like wow, amazing. And, and the food was nice, of course, as well.
It was Pakistani food, huh?
My first was Pakistani food the whole month. Yeah,
because a lot of it is like a lot of the communities in the UK are from the kind of Asian subcontinent, right? Yeah. So I think it probably was. It depends. Of course, you go to certain areas, you'll have Moroccans, or maybe even in certain places now you might even. I know in other European countries like Sweden, you'll find a lot of like, European Bosnian. So you'll have, maybe when you go to their iftar, it's a bit closer to European food.
I mean, the thing is like, I was thinking about it, like as we grew up in the West, there are two things with Ramadan that's like complete opposite. Like first, you would abstain yourself right from food and drinking. Like you don't do that in the West. Why would you do that? Unless it's because of you got to go to the dentist or doctor, right? Yeah. But for that many hours during the day, you don't do that. And secondly, like you said, you don't get together to eat with someone, right? Like sharing food in that way with strangers is just weird. Like
just sharing time with strangers is an alien thing.
Yeah,
especially for me, like it was like.
So it's like if you would put like define cultural shock, or like this is it, like a complete opposite of the West, but at the same time very beautiful. So yes, so that's it, like that's my story?
If you talk about going way back, those are the memories I have. Of course, Ramadan, there's the aspect of like you're praying in the mosque.
So I didn't have any of all that.
So I was still quite young, right? So 14, 15, before I came to UAE when I was about 17. So 14, 15, 16, it was kind of fun at the same time because my other teenage friends would come and we'd meet up and we'd chill and then we'd pray Taraweeh and then we'd chill a bit more. And this was way back before the days of like having like... Probably then there wasn't even mobile phones. So you didn't, there wasn't. So you're actually chatting and having fun. You're not like, hey, how you doing? Scrolling on your mobile phone. So that was those are good memories I have. Are like way back, my early Ramadan days. Of course, over all the years, there's lots of other Ramadan, but those are my first kind of Ramadan experiences.
But I know that in Sweden, it's like I remember this very clearly. Like when I grew up. I had a lot of Muslim friends, right, from Bosnia or from Albania, but not a lot of them did actually fast, like you said. But some of them did in the school, and then when they had lunch, they would sit there and not eat anything. And it was like you were so like even afraid for like not afraid, but like you think like, are these people gonna die?
Poor
like
guys,
poor guys, not eat. Even the teachers say like, oh, you gotta eat. It's not good for you. So were your parents like? Did they react or?
See, there was a time where I was kind of hiding my Islam from my.
Okay.
I was with my father then because I was living with my father. My parents divorced when I was young, and they kind of later on remarried and stuff. So I was living with my dad and my grandparents. So it was kind of I was keeping it very like hidden at the time. So it's very difficult to remember now when I was. But there was quite a period where I kept it kind of hidden. But so I can't remember was that the period? But it probably was because most of the time when I was in school. Before I left school, I was kind of hiding my Islam to begin with.
Yeah, makes sense. Shahid.
Yeah.
So what happened?
I wasn't hiding it, but I'm just trying to think back to how this experience really was because I didn't get to attend the mosque. I didn't get to do all the prayers. The only thing I can say that was really notable about my first experience is that, the whole idea of not eating and drinking was like so alien. Yeah. It was like the lifestyle you kind of live before Islam is like desires, whatever comes to your mind, do it.
Exactly.
And this whole idea of now I have to actually wrestle and battle with a desire is like it was unconceivable at the time. But one thing that was a good experience, I can say, is that I was put in charge of serving the iftar. So when people were eating, I was serving them food, and we had nice curry, we had roti.
I'll ask you a question then. So if you were involved in that process, how come you didn't get to experience the prayer?
Because at the time we weren't able to go and pray. We weren't able to go and have this night prayer because where I was staying at the time, they didn't have a mosque.
Oh, okay.
So we had like a little prayer hall where we would do the Friday prayers, and the 5 daily prayers were just done wherever we were. So we didn't have that kind of mosque to go out to. You understand me? So even the food was kind of brought to us, and I distributed it among the people.
Something that comes to mind now when you're talking about that. A big problem as well. And you mentioned that this concept of not eating and drinking was alien. A big problem is a lot of time, even as Muslims, a lot of Muslims don't even know how to explain to people why we fast. So
exactly.
I can imagine. I can't remember any particular conversation, but I know if I'd asked my friends, generally speaking, why you just have to, bro. Allah said you have to fast, which is, of course, we know that's enough, but we know there are wisdoms behind certain things. So we know now as we become Muslim and we learn, okay, these are things that usually are fine for you to do. Things that are permissible and enjoyable. Food, drink, and if you're married, relations with your husband, wife, whatever it may be. But you're holding back from things are permissible to obey Allah.
Exactly.
So hang on, if I can do this in the month of Ramadan, then surely I can train myself to stay away from that which is forbidden, and ultimately it's not good for you. It may temporarily feel like it's good for you. So no one explains that to you, and explains to you now, like, that in the Quran it says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu kutiba alaykum as-siyam kama kutiba ala alladhina min qablikum la'allakum tattaqun. O you who believe, fasting has been prescribed upon you like it was those before you, like the nations of Jesus and Abraham and Moses, peace be upon them, so that you may become of the muttaqun, those people who are conscious, righteous, pious, have this God consciousness, this awareness. So when that is, the whole of Ramadan is supposed to be a training ground. If you can hold back from that food and drink, which is usually fine, during a certain time, why? Because you said, Allah's ordered me and Allah can see me.
Exactly.
This should
strengthen outside.
Improve this kind of piety, this awareness in your everyday life. If you can stay away from that which is halal, permissible,
then what about what's halal?
What about what is forbidden?
100%.
This is really interesting because in my experience, I didn't have access to like the mosque and knowledge. But one of the things that I can say that is very clear in my mind is that I was very aware of doing more good and doing more things that Allah was pleased with in that month. Yeah, we know that the gates of hell are closed and the gates of paradise are open, and forgiveness and all those other blessings that come in this month. But I was definitely remember I was doing a lot more than I'd done any other month. And this was like the first ever experience for me. So, and it was kind of like, no one told me that, you do this to train yourself to become more aware of God and become of the righteous people. It was like, subconsciously I knew that this is what I have to do in order to really benefit from this month. Do you know what I'm trying to say? So it was like, I would pray more, I would hold myself more, I would not argue more. And I was like, when I think back to this experience that I was going through, I think to myself, why? I'm trying to think, is there a reason why I did that? Was I told to do that, or was I? It was just the atmosphere and it wasn't much of an atmosphere, but was it because I knew Ramadan in back of my heart, or from my fitrah, which is the natural inclination to know God the Almighty, that it was there inside of me? Do you know what I'm trying to say?
I mean, we all can testify to this. 100%. Like that month, something you become a superhero. And there's one thing I want to like point out is, you talk about the reason why we fast. Like, when I asked my friend, like during lunch, like, why do you do this? The first answer he said, which probably many Muslims say, is like, oh, we need to, it's to sympathize, like, know how the poor people have it, right? But there's actually a fallacy here, isn't it? Because
the poor people fast. The poor people fast.
Yeah, and even if they didn't, if they would have food, they would eat. Right? And like you said, I remember my first Ramadan, it was like, we had a mosque, but it's like very far from me. It's not like I was still fasting, I was sitting in my apartment. I remember I thought to myself, like, I could actually just go to the fridge and just grab a drink. No one can see me right now. And that, it kind of clicked for me, like, this is what a Muslim is. Like, you can do things in front of people, but it's another thing to do it when they're not around, to obey Allah when people are not around.
Yeah.
And that, like, it blew my mind. Like, now I understood, like, why the verse you talked about, like, so that you could be from those who are have piety and all that. It's a boot camp for your piety, to practice it without people around. Because let's face it, like, you couldn't see if someone's fasting. Impossible. Maybe smell their breath, but that's it. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah, but even that, you smell their breath. But when was it from? Was it from the morning? Was it from,
Yeah.
What was it from? But that's the whole thing, that this, I would say, like, the first experience, but the whole thing about experiencing this as a new Muslim is profound. It's like you kind of realize early on that I have a Lord who's watching me, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I can do whatever I want, as you said, publicly, outwardly. But the reality is there's something else going on. And that's the one big thing that all of us in this room, I think, when we embraced Islam, that clicked at some stage. Because before Islam, I had no sense of accountability. It wasn't like, the only accountability was like a surface level. Like, okay, I might get in trouble with my parents. Okay, I might get, this might.
You can get away, maybe.
I can get away with it, X, Y, and Z. But the whole idea that there's going to be an account, there's something recorded for me. This didn't exist until Ramadan. And that's one of the greatest experiences I came out with, was that Ramadan for me was like, didn't have a lot going on, but I knew it kind of was like clicked. Okay, I'm not eating, drinking, as you said. And realistically, I was by myself. I could just have a little munch, but I didn't. And I'm asking myself now, while I'm recalling all these memories, why? Why? Annie, there's no real reason why, except for you're doing it because you know that Allah is the one who's going to watch you, to be honest, So it was strange for me is that month of Ramadan, I was so happy because I was like, yeah, I've done it. I achieved it.
Certified Muslim.
Certified Muslim, yeah. I done it. Yeah, I achieved it. But the reality is I achieved nothing.
Yeah.
Because what a lot of people don't understand as well is that the fasting element is not just about leaving off food and drink. It's leaving off bad behavior. It's leaving off arguing. It's leaving off false speech. It's leaving off all these different things and increasing in righteous actions.
And of course, because we know that the Prophet Muhammad peace be upon him said, that Allah is not in need for you to give up your food and drink.
Yeah.
And that whoever does not give up, evil and bad speech, Allah is not in need of them just to give up food and drink.
Yeah.
So it's a bigger picture behind that. That giving up the food and drink, as you mentioned, is supposed to make you a better person, a more religious person, a better Islamic, character behind it. And the Prophet Muhammad peace be upon him, he also said that it may be that the fasting person gets nothing from his fasting apart from hunger and thirst.
Exactly. Sahih.
Because he insulted this person and
backbiting
that person, insulted
lying,
that person, So by the time he finishes, his fasting is like almost like nothing to it.
It's not,
invalid.
It's just like hunger and
exactly,
hunger, thirst, and definitely. I mean, of course, we can never say for sure that person. We see a person backbiting, speaking like your fast is broken, but he's got the risk of literally like the person who prays. He's done the obligatory act,
but
no real reward. Like the person who purposely every Jummah comes right on the first end of the first rak'ah, catches it, finishes. Yeah, he made Jummah, but did he
really
get
the
that proper reward of Jummah? No.
Yeah. And this is what's really profound. And I think for the next Ramadan that came for me, I think it was more solidified. But this whole concept of it was starting to grow inside of me, and I think that's really the spark of it was this Ramadan for me. Is that is life is more holistic. From my background, it was like, okay, you go and there's a day like Sunday, you go pray. Okay, outside those days, do what you want. And it was kind of, I was like, I wouldn't say I was bringing that into Islam, but I didn't have any other variation. So it was like, okay, Jummah, we go Jummah. Okay, I pray, in the day, But this whole concept now started to unveil itself in front of me, which is that life in Islam has many different facets, many different avenues and different things you need to look into.
Yeah.
So, and one of the unique things that I think you guys have both touched on is that brotherhood, because I come from a world that, it doesn't exist actually. it's a false pretense that you have brothers and we're in the same gang, and actually he'll stab you at the any given moment possible. He's ready to,
like frenemies.
Yeah, frenemies, exactly.
Yeah.
So it didn't exist, and I knew it never existed, and I was very apprehensive to brothers like touching me, which is, it might sound a bit strange, but that whole like Assalamu alaikum hug, that kind of, yo bro, like get off of me. And this was like another thing for me, that first experience of Ramadan, which is that people sitting together, eating, sharing food. I'm like, why are you touching my food? Like, why? Give me a plate. And that kind of thing was another dynamic of life that, opened up for me in that first month of Ramadan.
Yeah.
And even still, when I remember the second Ramadan that I lived to experience, it was still a bit alien to me, this whole eating together stuff, because it went from sharing food to actually you're now dipping fingers in the same bowl, and it was very strange. But this definitely the two things that really highlighted for me. Well, as I mentioned, like now these group of people I have to give a piece of my heart to.
Yeah,
this was very strange. How do you give your heart to someone? And as we know, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, peace and blessings be upon him, he mentioned that none of you truly believe until you love others what you love for yourself. So it's like the beautification of belief is to have this love for others, what you love for us. And I didn't, and it only started to come when I saw this love. Do you understand me?
How it was manifested.
Yeah, how it's manifested. I'm like, why are these people sitting together doing this stuff, sharing food? He's hungry and I'm hungry. Remember, right? So I'm eating all the food. I'm eating the food for myself. I'm not thinking about how he's eating, but I'm seeing other people like breaking it. He's giving it. And psychologically, subconsciously, I'm storing that in my brain, but I'm not acting upon it because I don't know how to act upon it. But I see people feeding others, and which is quite strange because I'm serving the food to others as well. So it was very, for me, this first experience was a very big struggle internally and externally. Like, this is all of what I don't know. Yeah. This is all of the opposite of what I believed in. This is the opposite of what I lived. How can I now just one day become a new individual? But I think it was very enlightening because you get to realize the faults you have inside of yourself, really. I think that was one of the greatest things I can say I was gifted by Allah from this Ramadan, is that I have so many imperfections, so many character defects that I was thinking, as we do, we love ourselves to a certain degree. And this is my first experience of Ramadan. It was not only the hunger, the thirst, but it was a very big emphasis on character and how the character of a person should be.
100%.
And that's it. I mean, you mentioned character. A lot of people, when they're fasting, they get all grumpy and
hungry,
and that's not what it should be, right?
That's
another challenge, because someone may say, like, I'm hungry, so they maybe get, I don't know, they may get snappy or something.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is, it's actually the opposite, because we know the Prophet Muhammad said to him, if someone comes to a person who's fasting and tries to like wind him up, he says, I'm fasting 3 times, so that shows you that you're not supposed to be getting angry.
Yeah,
some people take it for granted, like, I don't know, especially if in a Muslim country, people are rushing home and everyone's fighting in the cars and beeping, and everyone's really frustrated, right, to get home, because they want to get home to eat or something. But they're actually doing the opposite.
I got a bunch of stories, man.
I was just thinking when he mentioned that, I got all the stories flooding back to me.
Yeah.
The days where you eat to the point that you can't even get up off the chair to break my gut.
Yeah.
It's excessive eating because you just you're not refined.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that people do in Ramadan which are obviously which are wrong.
Yeah.
So if you're not supposed to get angry when someone's winding you up when you're fasting, how can you justify just being grumpy because you're hungry with everybody?
But that's the thing, like you said it, like, or you both said it, like, you need to practice and do this, fight against your own self, because it's not just abstaining from food and drink. In case you don't want to, lose reward, start no lying. Like, there's so many things that purifies you. And I think what's amazing is, you probably know this, like, there's so many people that turns to Islam during this holy month.
Yeah.
So many people becoming Muslims. It's crazy. Like, the numbers just go up, right? You can probably testify like how that is. I think it's just because you obviously see, first of all, it's a holy month. It's the month where the Quran was sent down, right? And you know, as you said, the doors to hell are closed and all the biggest, you know, devils are chained, right? But also this community feeling. Sometimes we lose it, you know, we get, you know, busy in our life, but then we realize, wait, we are brothers. At the end of the day, we are brothers. We're here. We're in this dunya, you know, we're going to die like sooner or later. Like we have each other. Let's do the best of it. I think that's beautiful. Like you really understand how temporary things are. You know that feeling as well, like when you've been fasting a whole day, like,
so these are kind of like the first experience. What about the next experience? Because normally when you do something for the first time, you become aware of it, right? You become aware of that thing, and you have an experience, and then you're sorry, bro.
It's always the same thing.
Yeah.
His adhan
I don't know. I turn it off.
going off.
Just
I want to show that he's
ready for prayer.
Religious. And
so that's like kind of the first experiences, right?
Yeah.
But now when you experience something for the first time, you get a taste of it, you become aware of it, and maybe you might understand that this dynamic, you had more strength than you previously thought, and you can come out of it better. What happened with the next experience of Ramadan? So my experience was now entered into a mosque, and I'll be honest with you, because of my unrefined character, my laziness, and somewhat stubbornness, I was like, you're gonna make me come to a mosque and pray for 1 hour. So I got to the first, you know, Allahu Akbar, first rak'ah, alhamdulillah, good. Second one finished, okay, fine. Got to 4, I was like, nah.
I'm done.
I'm done with this. So I walked out, and I remember everybody, you know, that kind of look.
But then again, it's important to mention, as you're mentioning that, as we know, that it's not a must to pray that. So we have that problem in this Muslim society of some things which are highly recommended. We can sometimes go over the top and almost make them an obligation upon a person.
Yeah.
And make that person, he could have a valid reason. You could just feel tired, have a headache, you're feeling lazy. You're a human being. You're not abandoning an obligatory act. That day you feel a bit lazy. You want to leave after 4. Sometimes as Muslims, we can have that kind of thing of like, oh, look at that lazy guy. This is not wajib.
Yeah.
And you find some of the scholars saying it's not allowed for you to go to the person and say, Ya akhi, today is Yom Arafah. Do you know the reward of fasting? A year's sins are forgiven. Why aren't you fasting? Come on, bro. That's because you can't do this.
Wow. You
cannot go and become judgmental and make these indirect hints about not fasting on a day for something that's not even a wajib.
Yeah.
It's not right. You know, so we have that problem, like, which came to my mind because you said everyone's looking at you like, oh.
No, that was this is the thing I'm going to get into a bit later on in the discussion. This was the kind of the negative part of the second experience I had, is where everybody became very judgmental. It's like, okay, you weren't praying Taraweeh. Okay, you're not doing this, you're not doing that, and you know, what are you doing? I'm just trying to find my feet as a Muslim, to be honest. You know, I went from one dynamic, which is my character. I highlighted I need to change a lot. The other dynamic is now I need to believe in Allah from my heart. Do you understand me? And I had belief, which is, you know, we know the 3 levels of Islam. You know, the Muslim, the believer, the mu'min, and the muhsin. Yeah. So I was just a Muslim. I believed God is one, and I believed in the fundamentals. But I want to become mu'min. I want to become a believer, and I was trying to go through that stage of becoming a believer. And so it was like I had laziness, and I had the whole feeling of the whole mosque is looking at me, and I was really alienated because the brother who took me was from the Indo-Pak region, and I was like the only black guy. You know, and it was like, why is he in our mosque? To be honest, that was exactly the kind of thing. And I used to come to the front row, and some of the uncles used to be like, you know,
get back.
Yeah, you know, and I say, what's he saying? He's saying, Habibi, this is reserved for the uncles. It's not for you, you know. And I would say, like, Habibi, this doesn't exist. What would you mean reserved for the uncles? And they would ask me, like, why are you praying in our mosque? You know, like things like this. So that was a really now different dynamic for me. Because I've seen brotherhood. Now I'm seeing opposite, because what happened was, where I first became Muslim, I was very far away from where I grew up. I was very far away. I had to get away. Basically, I asked Allah at the time, please take me away by any means possible, because I need to get away from my circle. So I ended up in the middle of nowhere. Nothing's going on, no mosque. It was a very tough environment. This now, years past, I'm back in my environment. I'm back in the city where I grew up. And now this is a whole new dynamic of judgmentalness, you know, family pressures, or why are you fasting? It got very difficult.
A good thing what you'll notice is when you find mosques where people are practicing Islam correctly, you know, following the Quran and the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad peace be upon him and his companions and etc., then you find that doesn't really exist as, you know,
Exactly.
like we've all been in mosques where there's black, white, Asian.
Yeah.
Everyone's just there
Rainbow.
praying. Everyone's happy to see each other. Everyone's
Exactly, yeah.
chilling with each other. Why? Because they're all actually implementing Islam correctly.
Yeah,
Now,
exactly.
the person who says to you, why are you praying in our mosque?
Yeah.
They're not, you know, implementing Islam correctly.
Yeah.
So they have some bigotism or some nationality. This is, for example, this is a certain nationality mosque.
Do you know
have
the
to be
name
from
of the
here.
mosque was Pakistani Mosque. Then we had another one on the literally maybe 100 meters down the road, Bangladeshi Mosque.
But you can understand from some perspective, like communities, they move into an area, maybe a particular community are in these couple of roads and this couple of roads, and they want khutbahs in their own language, but to be to the extent where they look at you like, oh, you're not from Bangladesh, why are you coming here? Or you're not from Bosnia, why are you coming to our Swedish Bosnian mosque, for example? I say that because we don't have Bosnian mosques, to my knowledge, in the UK, but you have a lot in Sweden and other European countries. So that's a problem. It's not necessarily a problem having that to cater to your community who want to hear khutbahs in their language, but to make it like, look at you like, oh, he's not here. This is a Bosnian mosque. No, this is Allah's mosque. There's no such thing as a Bosnian mosque. You guys operate it or you guys run it, but there's no such thing as a mosque that is only for Bosnians or Europeans or Pakistanis or Afro-Caribbeans or whatever it may be.
And we're not pointing out this,
The
nationality.
reason why I'm pointing it out,
it's just ignorance, unfortunately.
And I'm pointing it out because that's how it made me feel in that experience.
Yeah.
Now I understand differently, and I can put a different perspective on it, like Ismail touched on. He said the reality was they were giving the khutbah in Urdu.
Yeah.
In the Bangladeshi mosque, they were giving the khutbah in Bangladeshi. So they had the whole system created up for their own cultures. So
and that's fine.
Exactly. But you know what it was? It was for me at that time, it was like Pakistani mosque, Bangladeshi mosque. Where do I fit in?
Yeah.
Especially, like you said, if you had some feedback from the community, like you're not welcome. This is the problem.
And this
the problem isn't it being a Pakistani mosque for the Pakistani community in that area or Bangladesh or whatever it may be. The problem is when someone steps into a mosque, because this at the day is not a community center, it's a masjid, it's a mosque. That they should feel at home, because ultimately this is a place to worship Allah. It's not a community center. So that's the whole point behind it.
Yeah, then you know what, why I say this, and I brought this experience to the table, is that it can be a deterrent for some people.
100%.
And I think because of my stubborn nature and my kind of rebellious attitude that I had and still have to a certain degree, is that I was like, no, I'm still going to go. I'm still going to be here. I'm still going to be there. And I think what I want to, and what I want to kind of share from this experience is that don't be scared based upon these parameters, because Islam is one. We're all brothers and we're all sisters, going to the same direction. And you might feel, or the people might listen, might feel, but this is not for me. Maybe I can't walk into a mosque. Maybe the mosque in my area is one of these different nationalities. I feel uncomfortable. Maybe I do want to become Muslim. Maybe I want to experience it, but I've got that kind of alienated feeling. Don't feel alienated, because the reality of what I want to get to is the fact is, my next journey from the next Ramadan is the level of being sincere. I haven't attained it, but this was the spark for me. I realized I really wasn't sincere. And if I want to be sincere, it doesn't matter who is in this mosque, whether he's saying I shouldn't be here or not. I'm not here for him. And I'm not here for his judgment on me. I'm here to get the pleasure of Allah. And I think halfway through the month, that's when I started to feel, okay, I should go to the mosque. you know? And that was kind of, something that's really profound that I wanted to share. That might inspire some people, because
100%.
I know I had that wrestle. But like I said, I had that rebellious nature, so I'm just going to go.
I think that's for everyone, to be honest. It was the same thing for me. And I think new Muslims, we have a lot of baggage we need to clear up. And I think sometimes you got these people ignorant, like they don't have the knowledge maybe of the Quran and the prophetic Sunnah, or maybe they just they're so excited for you becoming a Muslim, they want you to do everything at once. So don't realize that maybe this sister, she took her Shahada today, maybe not talk about hijab right now.
Yeah.
Just teach her the fundamentals and take step by step with her, even with the brothers. It needs to take. You need to go gradually. Like you cannot push people into a certain, like you need to do all of this. I remember I felt that, like you said, the same thing. Like if I didn't do a certain act, it wasn't wajib. I didn't maybe wear this qameez, this long dress, they will look at me funny, right? Like, and I like, for those that are new Muslims, if you feel like alienated sometimes and all that, remember that it might not be because of Islam, just the ignorance of people.
Exactly.
And just, find a good community that can support you and take things in your own time. Obviously, don't put things off.
Of course.
Like, if you're a Muslim, you need to do the obligations, right? Start praying, do your best, but be careful overwhelming yourself with things that might not even be obligatory, right?
Exactly.
Having that siwak and everything,
and remember what you're doing it for. I think
exactly.
ultimately,
100%.
the whole idea is like when you're by yourself in your room and you're doing what you're doing, like you mentioned before, Ismail, like when you're fasting, you're doing it for Allah, right? You're by yourself. So remember, when you're by yourself, who are you doing this for? And if you're taking this journey, or you want to embark on this journey, or you're thinking of, okay, that sounds like something that resonates in my heart, who are you doing it for? We've become too focused on what other people think. And it has a place, in the right place, what people think, and certain, from the general morals and manners that Islam has come to encourage as well. But we're talking about when it's in regards to your belief and your actions
and intentions.
Yes, it should only be for Allah. Nothing else mixed up in there. If I'm going to take this path and I believe in an entity like Almighty God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then every step I'm taking is for that reason. So realistically, the whole world doesn't matter, because the one who owns the whole world is the one I'm trying to please. I'm trying to do something for. So if information comes to you, it's the truth given to you from your Lord. And we say this kind of fake kind of thing, right? So everything happens for a reason. Something happens, knowledge comes to you. I come across this click, and I'll go into why this is coming part of the story, is that everything happens for a reason, and that reason behind it, we focus on the one who gave it to us. And the example of what I'm trying to mention when I said it's going to go into story is that's when I found, to a certain degree, knowledge. I clicked on a post, and this post on like old, I don't know, Facebook post, right? And it was a speaker, and I'll never forget, because this was the very first bit of memorization I did. Surah Naba. Inna lil muttaqina mafaza hadaiqa wa a'naba. These verses, he was reciting these verses, and he was talking about how the Quran was a miracle, and then he was saying, what about if you got up and died now? And I was just like, wow. I listen. And at the end of the day, what happened was, this was where it reminded me that what I'm going to do now has to have some sustenance, some basis. It can't just be me doing all these different actions because that's what my friends are doing. And it's cool and X, Y, and Z. What am I doing it for? Do you understand me? And this is kind of where you shift through the different Ramadans, and this was like, for me, the second shift. So we were kind of discussing about the second experience and how that second experience kind of also molded and shaped all the different dynamics of how we're living today. And I think one part of that second experience was really important to share, is that, as we were highlighting, who are we doing this all for? When we're listening to this podcast, what comes to mind and what actions should come after it? Because, the whole idea behind our experiences is that they should create new experiences. So if you're passively listening, you got it on in the background, maybe there's a one word that just gets you and sparks a memory or intrigues you and makes you want to research further. But the reality is, every experience should lead you to a new experience. And when you're led into a new experience, why are you acting upon that experience? Do you understand what I'm trying to say? And who for? And I think this is kind of where I want to kind of end this discussion between us, is that when did it really click for you brothers in Christian that this Ramadan experience is, it really profoundly hit you that this is all for Allah, that my life is all for Allah, and all of these things that I'm going to now change and start to live upon is all for Allah?
I mean, I think for me, the second Ramadan, for example, this time I was like I wasn't at school at the time. I'd left school, and so I was not more free, but you know what I mean. They had more freedom to kind of go to other places, and I went to a particular masjid where the people there were of different backgrounds. You know, so you had people originally from Africa, the Caribbean, Asian, as in we would say in the UK, Asian, as in Pakistani, Bengali, etc. White brothers. So this was interesting. That goes back to what you said, how you felt, or what I said earlier on how you felt because they're all together there. It's not based on one particular community, even though there may be a particular community that is 80% of them, but you didn't get that feeling that you're not welcome because this is our community in this particular area of London. Rather, everyone's trying to practice Islam the correct way, the most authentic way. So this is where generally my Islam became more cemented in the sense of I had some kind of, I guess you could say, guidance that, people that can guide me and tell me the right way and the wrong way and how to do this and how to do that. Whereas before I just had my school friends who themselves needed some guidance and no one else. So this was where Ramadan took on, when I was with Ramadan or Islam in general, became more clearer to me, more able to kind of take it more seriously, I guess you could say, due to that environment. So that shows you the environment and having good mentors and having is also very important.
I think, if you connect like what you said just there with something that I felt, I mentioned to you that I was in that mosque and I was feeling a bit lazy. And one of the things that happened that, laziness was the asl, was the root. But then I had other factors that you try to convince yourself of why you can't come to the prayer. So I was lazy. It was too long for me in my mind. But there was the element of the Surah Al-Fatiha and all the other recitation of the Quran was very fast. And I found that very unusual, very mumbled and very uncomfortable for me. So that was another excuse for me to make an excuse for my laziness. I don't like the way reciting's going on. Anyway, as I mentioned to you, I started to kind of watch things, X, Y, and Z, and it started to, that kind of feeling of, I need to do something for the one who I accepted this all for, came to me. I found another mosque. This other mosque, very small. And as you mentioned, there was every color in the rainbow, in if that's the right way to put it, in the mosque. There was, I wasn't the only black brother this time. There was, Moroccans, there was Pakistanis, Bangladeshis, there was Arabs from different regions, from everywhere. And that was for me like, okay, now this is where I can feel at home. But what came with that is the solidification of my direction in Islam. Now I'm still on that journey, and it's a journey that will never end, but that direction of where to go. The people of authentic knowledge, they were trying to propagate the authentic knowledge. And that's where I found peace, because we are all here for the same reason. And what is that reason? To worship Allah and please Allah in following what's correct and right. And it doesn't matter where you come from, what you look like, what your background is. This is what brings us all together. And I think that's really kind of for me, that sense of profound purpose. What am I here for in this world? I've accepted Islam as the truth, the true way, the path towards the pleasure of Almighty God. And that's the first stage. Second stage is now actualization of that feeling in your heart. Because one thing to know that, as I mentioned before earlier on in the podcast, that I need to drink water. And then there's another thing, actually drinking that water and setting yourself goals to drink a certain amount every day. And I think that's where the Ramadan and all these things tie in, because Ramadan is a month where you train yourself to follow that discipline, that structure. And why? Ultimately to find the awareness, the consciousness, the awe, the veneration of Almighty God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's kind of what these experiences we've all shared have come to the conclusion. We'll come to a very nice conclusion, which is that how much of what we do is training ourselves to do what's right. And who are we doing it for? Are we doing it for the likes, the shares, the clicks? Are we doing it really for the one who we believe created the system in which we live in. You know. So,
and you said a very, like, one thing I'm thought about when you talked about the second experience. I really recognize myself in that. The first experience, I was in Sweden, right? A lot of new things. I think the first week I was kind of sick. You know, 20-hour fast, just, you know, excessive coffee drinker. I had the worst migraine and it was crazy. And I always felt like every day, like, should I keep on doing this? Like, why should I do this? Like, really going into yourself, like, why am I doing this? And I think that question is really important. Why are you doing stuff, right? And I think the second experience, that's when I decided to move from Sweden and went to Egypt to study Arabic and all that. And I realized, like, it's easier to realize what you're doing when you're removing distractions, right? When I was in Egypt, I was alone, basically. I was alone in Sweden, but I didn't have any, I couldn't go across the street to visit someone, right? And it was now in a Muslim country, and everything I knew that was usual for me from the West is gone, right? Like, I was there praying, you know, the whole society was around Ramadan. Like, a Muslim country is very, very different from when you do it in the West, right? And that's when you realize, I think, like you said, the purpose, right? Why are you doing it? And really, you know, want to do it. And you feel like this, you see the benefit spiritually, that I'm actually growing as a person. The things I did before Islam, the things that made me feel empty, like, it's just distractions. And this food I'm eating, I can abstain from it because I have a higher purpose. Like, this body just is gonna wither away, you know, when I'm put in the ground someday. And like you said, we're all heading towards the same destination. Just make sure we're jumping off the right station, right? Not on the wrong station. And that's what we need to do. And I think the beautiful part with Ramadan is like an alarm clock. I feel it now, like, when Ramadan comes, like, we need to prepare, like, it's the most beautiful time to really sink to your purpose again, and not, you know, dunya, like, leave it aside for a bit. Yeah, I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, exactly.